Goldberg's name is synonymous with both WWE and wrestling fans around the world. Immediately, there are three things that come to mind: WCW, his legendary winning streak, and the Spear. But what if I told you his win streak in the hundreds were a lie? And many wrestlers talk about his ring ability or mic skill, frankly, being mid. So how is a former American football player able to climb his way through a stacked roster in WCW, where he is the top guy in the company, even eclipsing Hulk Hogan in popularity and money? This is all without any prior knowledge or training in the business. Now, whilst it is not unheard of for a wrestler to become a top guy through gimmick alone, such as the Ultimate Warrior in the past, it's hard to argue for the case for Goldberg, as he has been able to get away with it for nearly 2 decades in an industry where we have wrestlers like Seth Rollins working day in and day out. Looking back holistically, it does seem a bit unfair that someone with Goldberg's stature was able to achieve so much more than others around him, being able to win both the Big Gold and the Universal Championship respectively within his career, a feat many wrestlers dream of. When Goldberg debuted in WCW in 1997, he went on to portray a guy that would beat anyone in a matter of a few seconds. He captivated the audience with his muscular physique and silent charisma. Seeing him destroy superstars on a weekly basis felt great at the time, and it was a no-brainer that the company chose him to be the face of WCW. The fans were dying for a superhero-like character to take on the New World Order and any other heels that were dominating WCW faces at the time. For me and everyone else, Goldberg was everything they could have hoped for. However, looking deeper into the legendary undefeated streak, many remember the day Kevin Nash along with Scott Hall defeating Goldberg at Starrcade 1998, and it was a controversial one. Some criticized Kevin Nash for breaking it, stating he was going into business for himself and using his creative powers to make sure he was going over. And on the flip side, Goldberg has gone on record to say Kevin was out to derail any moment he had at the time. Whilst Goldberg's year-long undefeated run was impressive, the record of 173 wins, 0 losses may not even be official at all. Many wrestlers over the past many years have argued that Goldberg's win-loss record was inflated, and WCW did this in order to generate as much buzz as possible.
Kev, can I finally get the truth about Goldberg's streak?
I don't know what the number is, but there was, it was definitely padded because we didn't work that many dates.
However, when we move on to his limited ring abilities, things get a little worse. At the time, we would all believe that Goldberg was capable of putting on great matches. But now that I think about it just a little bit instead of being a kid, I can barely remember any of his matches that I consider to be somewhat decent. Let me know what you think in the comments. One that many talk about is the match against William Regal, as this exposed Goldberg's limitations in the ring, where they squared off in 1998. Regal, who was coming back from a 7 weeks out against a fresh-faced Goldberg, he claims that he was told by the producer of the match to have a competitive 6-minute match with Goldberg.
And have a 6-minute match. Bill had never done anything more than a 90-second match. And the words were, and we both heard it, have a competitive match.
Goldberg, on the other hand, claims that Regal was stiff with him and made him feel green in the ring. And looking at it now, it's evident that Goldberg was messing up big time during the match. He was missing his spots and cues quite often, up until the point where you can see William Regal visibly frustrated with him. The reason Goldberg was given the streak and to end his matches within 60 seconds was because he didn't actually know how to wrestle, and many stars knew this behind the scenes. William Regal just indirectly exposed it. Everyone started to think Goldberg was not able to hang with some of the best technicians in the world, and it will make certain wrestlers question if Goldberg was even safe to work with.
Bill doesn't really, he freezes up, he doesn't know it, so I'm just working around him, and that's all.
If
I'm telling you, I'm trying to get him to do stuff and I'm working around him.
We all know it takes two to tango in the wrestling ring. Even if a superior technician is working with an average B+ player, the average average wrestler expects the superior one to carry him to a decent match. But on the other hand, the superior wrestler expects their co-worker to keep them both safe whilst working. If Goldberg had done this, maybe we would have seen a much longer career of Bret the Hitman Hart. Granted, injuries are a part of this sport, and you can't blame your opponent every time for putting you in a predicament. However, Goldberg on more than one occasion has come close to ending a lot of superstars' careers. One case a lot of fans are aware of is in 1999. Bret faced Goldberg at Starrcade for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. It was when the cracks began to appear. The match isn't memorable for being a classic. Rather, it's remembered for the one thing that made most people turn against Goldberg, and that is the end of Bret Hart's legendary career. During the match, Goldberg legitimately kicked Bret in the head, causing Bret to suffer from a severe concussion. However, Bret, unaware of how severe the concussion was, continued to wrestle a few more matches later. This is where things got rough, as Bret was diagnosed with post-concussion syndrome and he was ultimately forced to retire. As a result, Bret hasn't spared Goldberg ever since. He has openly confessed his hatred for him several times and hasn't been shy in stating that Goldberg can't wrestle. This is what Bret had to say to Stone Cold Steve Austin on the Broken Skull session.
And I would hurt myself before I ever hurt another wrestler. And I really wish some of the wrestlers that I worked with, especially at the end, like Goldberg, to me was one of the most unprofessional wrestlers there ever was in the business. I mean, for Bill Goldberg to be in the Hall of Fame, he hurt everybody he worked with. You might as well wrestle a real gorilla.
Another case recently of his bad wrestling is when Goldberg faced The Undertaker at Super Showdown in 2019. And even though both were past their prime at that point, since, you know, they're both over 50 years old, they came close to ending each other's careers. Goldberg, true to his own tradition, used to bang his head against a locker to psych himself up. This was evident when he came out of his entrance with his forehead bleeding already. And from there, it only got worse. You can't make this shit up. During the match, he ran headfirst into the corner post, giving himself a concussion to boot. Whilst The Undertaker botched the tombstone power-driver that almost broke Goldberg's neck, Goldberg delivered an awful-looking jackhammer to the dead man that almost horrifically injured him. Overall, we can all say it was a disaster of a match.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
The Undertaker and Goldberg both openly admitted this was his worst match yet. So as you can see, taking care of your opponent is a must. And had he not banged his head, causing the first initial concussion, who knows? Maybe we could have had a classic on our hands.
No.
The long list of Goldberg's botches in matches with various wrestlers can be found throughout his career. This is why wrestlers like Triple H had a feud with him. In the first season of Tough Enough, for example, Triple H went off on a rant against Goldberg and shamed one of the rookies when they said that Goldberg was their favorite wrestler.
If your biggest idol in this business is a guy that's been in the business for about a year, got everything handed to him, can't have a match longer than 4 minutes.
Years later, on Talk Is Jericho, Goldberg confirmed that there was a real-life friction between them. Triple H's opinion on Goldberg isn't far from the truth, as he injured himself constantly. Another example is December 1999 in an episode of WCW, where he was meant to chase down a limousine belonging to the New World Order. He had to punch out the windows with the help of a metal pipe in his hands. But as a result, this caused a severe laceration that only took him out of commission for 5 months, but doctors thought they were going to have to amputate Goldberg's arm. And let's not forget, unlike him, the script with Drew McIntyre in 2021 went wrong because he didn't know his line. And remember when he went in the wrong direction to chase down Chris Jericho in the early 2000s, where we all saw it live, where Jericho Jericho went one way, and where's Goldberg going? So the major point we have to point out is after WWE acquiring WCW, it was only a matter of time before Goldberg debuted in the company. When he eventually did, it was in a strong fashion, and he went straight in toe-to-toe with the great one, The Rock, in his first feud. The match took place at Backlash, and they both faced each other for 13 minutes. Goldberg was not used to long matches, and he further proved that he hadn't changed at all, even with the experience gained from WCW and practice. The fans bombarded Goldberg at the event, and you couldn't blame them. After all, Goldberg was in the ring with probably the most famous wrestling star of all time. As a result of the crowd in the arena consistently booing Goldberg, he started to display a bad attitude. Things didn't help when he got into a terrible feud with Triple H that I mentioned earlier, but this time round it was in regards to the World Heavyweight Championship. The fans kept on rejecting the old man, and for me, it was hard to defend him in any way possible. You could tell by watching every week that Goldberg was getting livid at the negative reaction he was getting. Later that year, Goldberg entered into a feud with Brock Lesnar. I thought to myself that, Goldberg's career would improve with this program and things would get back to normal for him, right? But little did we know, we were all wrong. By the time we got to WrestleMania 20, the fans found out before the event that both Goldberg and Brock would be leaving the company after WrestleMania. The match saw the crowd rejecting both stars and showering boos at them during the entire match. Now we all have to admit it was painful to sit and watch those few minutes because the result didn't matter at all. Goldberg's first run was a mess on different levels of the company. Knowing how he was booked in WCW, they could have created a different star, but it wasn't meant to be. To make matters worse, his second run in 2016 fared slightly better, but it was still flawed. There comes a time when you have to start giving back to the business. It becomes your responsibility to pave the way for the future and put over young talent so that they can push the boundaries of the industry, right?
No, I don't think I will.
Fans thought that Goldberg would be making new stars look good after his feud with Brock was over. And whilst it could have been requested by him or the WWE creative booking team, what we got instead was a series of poor decisions that undid all the good that came from the Brock Lesnar match. When Kevin Owens won his only Universal Championship in 2016 and began a program with his tag team partner Chris Jericho, the two put on the most entertaining segments on a weekly basis.
Roman Reigns!
Like bruh, who could forget the list of Jericho? That shit was peak. The wrestling community knows that the two should have main evented WrestleMania in 2017 that year, but Vince, he had other plans. Additionally, prior to Goldberg signing on after the Lesnar match, he asked to hold the title one more time inside of his contract. This meant that Kevin then had to drop the title to Goldberg at Fastlane 2017. And you guessed it, in just a few seconds. An insulting loss for Kevin Owens, who really had been working his ass off for the whole year. Goldberg went on to defend the championship against Brock at WrestleMania. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what led Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens to fight for the US Championship instead, going on second at WrestleMania in a disappointing bout. This was the beginning of the end of Chris Jericho's career at WWE, as he started his decision of departure as he had no faith in the company's ability anymore. As for Kevin, it would take him years to make his way back up to the card. As a result, fans don't really like Goldberg. Till this day, they argue that he should have gone against the idea of him winning the title of Kevin Owens, instead of putting his ego in front and not caring about the company and just thinking about his own image and money. It did little for him. His match against Brock Lesnar was already a marquee match and didn't need the title to elevate infuriated. He should have made it clear to the executives backstage that his match with Brock didn't need any championship on the line whatsoever. What's even more infuriating is that Goldberg did the same to The Fiend at Super Showdown in 2020. And I can confidently claim that Bray Wyatt was never the same after that pathetic loss. The Fiend was portrayed as an unstoppable powerhouse that was able to absorb countless amounts of damage and still be unfazed. Here comes Goldberg, and it only took 4 spears from the former WCW man to put down The Fiend and win his 2nd championship. The Fiend character, which was the hottest thing in wrestling at the time, died that day. So this was just another case of selfish booking, something that he used to complain about when Regal, Nash and Triple H did it to him, making him come across as a hypocrite to the fans. However, Goldberg has gone on to state that he has no control over the finish of the match and he simply follows the instructions of the company. Speaking with Fox Sports, he stated the following:
I don't make the decisions. I just follow orders and I go out and I do my job. And I try to do my job to the best of my ability.
Nostalgia is what Goldberg relies on. Even when he was inducted as a Hall of Famer in 2018, Goldberg complained that superstars were disrespecting him as most of them left before he even gave his speech. But with everything that has happened in the past 20 years, it's evident that Goldberg was a bad wrestler, but a great entertainer and will always have a special place with wrestling fans around the world. And someone with a similar career is Hulk Hogan. Learn about how he ruined his career and why his wrestling peers hated him in the video displayed on your screen right now.